I thought I was marrying the love of my life. I didn't realize I was marrying into a dynasty with a horrifying tradition, a brutal family ritual they called the culling. They saw me, a blue-collar carpenter, as a pawn in their sick game of inheritance and betrayal. My fiancée swore it was just a formality, a harmless family quirk. But when I uncovered a century-old secret hidden within their mansion's walls, I realized she was lying. She was going to sacrifice me to save herself. They just made one mistake. They asked me to build the stage for my own execution. And a master craftsman always knows how to build a trapdoor. Listen to the full story to hear how I turned their most sacred tradition into their public unraveling. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The air in the ballroom was thick with the scent of old money and wilting hydrangeas. From my position near the back, I could see the whole grotesque pageant laid out. 300 of Charleston's elite, dressed in tuxedos and silk gowns, pretending they weren't at a public execution. My fiancée, Clara, stood near the front, a vision in emerald green, her posture perfect. She looked like a queen, but I knew what she really was. She was a lion tamer, and I was the piece of meat she was about to toss into the cage. Because tonight was the night of the culling, and I was the one about to be culled. My heart wasn't pounding. It was unnervingly still, a cold, heavy stone in my chest. Clara caught my eye from across the room and gave me a small, reassuring smile. It was the same smile she'd given me a week ago when she told me she loved me. The same smile she'd had on her face when she explained, in chilling detail, how she was going to betray me. I just smiled back, a hollow imitation of the man I used to be, the man who had believed her. They all thought I was a lamb being led to the slaughter. They had no idea I had spent the last 3 days turning their slaughterhouse into a hall of mirrors. 2 years ago, I wasn't here. I was in my workshop in a dusty part of North Charleston, covered in sawdust, happy. I'm a carpenter, a restorer of antique furniture. I find broken, forgotten things and I make them whole again. It's quiet, honest work. And then Clara Ashworth walked into my life. She brought me a dilapidated 18th century writing desk that belonged to her great-grandmother. She was elegant, witty, and had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. She was everything I wasn't. We fell in love over dovetail joints and the smell of wood varnish. I was intimidated by her family's wealth, the sprawling historical mansion south of Broad Street, the legacy that dripped from every portrait on the walls. But Clara made me feel like none of that mattered. She said she loved that I worked with my hands, that I was real, that I wasn't like the vapid trust fund guys she grew up with. For the first time in my life, I felt seen for exactly who I was. I was so caught up in the romance of it all I didn't recognize the signs. I was a novelty to her, a rustic curiosity. I was her pet carpenter. The codependency of the Ashworth clan was a force of nature. Her father, Alistair, was the patriarch, a man carved from granite and disapproval. Her mother, Beatrice, was a ghost who drifted through rooms, medicated on chardonnay and denial. Her two brothers, Julian and Marcus, were locked in a lifelong Cold War competition for their father's favor. They were all orbiting Alistair, their lives dictated by his whims, his moods, and the terrifying tradition that loomed over all of them. Clara first told me about the culling 6 months into our relationship. We were walking on Folly Beach, and she said it so casually, as if she were talking about the weather. "It's just this silly thing my family does," she said, letting the ocean foam wash over her bare feet. "On my father's 75th birthday he gathers everyone and, well, he sort of announces the future of the family trust. Who's in, who's out. It's archaic, I know. A bit dramatic, but it's mostly for show. Gaslighting. It was the family's native tongue. She made it sound like a harmless, eccentric parlor game, but I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. I learned later that this silly thing had defined every choice she'd ever made. Her major in college, the charity she volunteered for, the friends she kept. It was a 24/7 performance to prove her worth to her father. And when I proposed, I wasn't just asking her to be my wife. I was signing up to be her co-star in this twisted production. My naivety was my downfall. I thought my love could be her shield. Instead, she saw me as a liability. The trauma bond she had with her father was absolute. His approval was the air she breathed. I tried to pull her away from it, to show her that a life outside their gilded cage was possible. I poured my life savings, nearly $80,000, into starting a bespoke furniture business with her. Ashworth and Cole, we called it, my craft, her name. I thought it would give her independence. I thought it would prove to her father that we were a formidable team. She loved the idea, or so she said. But now I know what she really saw it as, another asset to add to her portfolio for the Culling. My awakening came 4 weeks ago. Alistair had commissioned me to restore his own personal heirloom, a massive oak roll-top desk that had belonged to the first Ashworth in Charleston. He wanted it to be the centerpiece of the culling ceremony. As I was carefully disassembling the back paneling, my fingers brushed against a false bottom. My heart quickened. Inside, nestled in the dark, was a small leather-bound ledger. Its pages were filled with spidery, faded ink, dating back to 1890. It was a record, kept by each patriarch of every culling. It wasn't a parlor game, it was a blood sport. Each entry detailed who was culled and why. Amelia, 1925. For marrying a musician, cut off. Jonathan, 1957. For a failed shipping venture, cut off. But it was the notes in the margins that made my blood run cold. They were brief, brutal postscripts. Amelia died of consumption 18 months later, penniless. Jonathan took his own life, 1958. Richard, Alistair's own brother, 1993. Lost to drink and gambling after being culled. Died in a car accident. This wasn't a tradition, it was a curse. It was a system designed to consolidate power and punish anyone who dared to step out of line. Alistair hadn't just watched his brother be destroyed by this. He had inherited the system and was perpetuating it with relish. The narcissism was so profound, so absolute it was hard to comprehend. I felt sick. I drove straight to our apartment, the ledger burning a hole in my passenger seat. I found Clara in the kitchen, humming to herself as she arranged flowers in a vase. "What is this, Clara?" I asked, my voice shaking as I placed the ledger on the marble countertop. She looked at it, and for the first time the mask of effortless grace fell away. I saw pure, unadulterated fear. "Where did you get that? It doesn't matter." She started to cry, the tears she could summon on command. "You don't understand, Ethan. It's not like that anymore. My father is different." "Different how? Does he still destroy the people who disappoint him?" The argument that followed was the ugliest of my life. I pushed, and she deflected. I presented facts, and she countered with emotional appeals. And then, finally, cornered and desperate, she told me the truth. "He was never going to choose you, Ethan," she finally screamed, her face contorted with a rage I'd never seen. "You're a carpenter. He thinks you're the help. My only chance, our only chance, was to make a deal." "What deal?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "I told him that I know you're not right for this family, that my relationship with you was a youthful mistake. At the culling, I was going to announce that I was ending our engagement, that I was rededicating myself to the family legacy. It proves my loyalty. He gets what he wants, I secure my inheritance, and then after a year, when everything is settled, we could be together again. For real. It's just a game, Ethan. We just have to play it." The world tilted on its axis. The cognitive dissonance of her words was like a physical blow. She wasn't just breaking up with me. She was planning to publicly humiliate me, to discard me like a piece of trash in front of 300 people, as a strategic move to get her father's money. And the most horrifying part? She genuinely believed I would go along with it. That I would stand there, be sacrificed, and then wait patiently for her to come back to me. That was the depth of her delusion. The depth of the Ashworth sickness. I stood there in the kitchen, the beautiful sun-drenched kitchen of the life I thought we were building, and I looked at the woman I loved. And I finally saw her. She wasn't a princess trapped in a tower, she was one of the dragons. "Okay," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I understand." And she, in her infinite self-absorption, believed me. She thought I had accepted my role. She hugged me, crying with relief. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered into my chest. "I knew you'd understand. You're so strong." As she held me, I looked over her shoulder at my reflection in the dark glass of the oven door. My face was a blank mask, but behind my eyes, a plan was beginning to form. A plan born of sawdust and varnish and the quiet patience of a craftsman. Her father wanted me to build the stage for the ceremony, a grand mahogany podium. He wanted it to be my final act of service to the family, and it would be. Just not in the way they imagined. In the 3 weeks leading up to the culling, I became the man they wanted me to be. I was quiet, compliant, and defeated. A ghost in my own life. Clara treated me with a sort of tender pity, as if I were a beloved pet who had to be put down for its own good. She'd touch my arm gently and say things like, "It'll be over soon, and I'm doing this for us." The gaslighting was so constant, so thick I felt like I was wading through mud. Every word was a lie, and I had to pretend to believe them all. It was the hardest performance of my life. I spent my days in the Ashworth's cavernous garage, which they'd cleared out for me to use as a workshop. I was building the podium, the very altar upon which I was to be sacrificed. Alistair would visit me occasionally, observing my work with a critical eye. He saw me as little more than a tool. He never suspected that the tool was sharpening itself. "The joinery must be perfect, Cole," he'd say, running a finger over a piece of raw mahogany. "This podium will be in the family for generations, a symbol of our continuity." "Of course, Mr. Ashworth," I'd reply, my voice flat and subservient. "I understand its importance." Oh, he had no idea. My revenge wasn't going to be loud or violent. It was going to be quiet, precise, and devastating. It was going to be an act of carpentry. While they were all busy with their drama, I was busy with my craft. I designed the podium with a hidden hollow compartment in its base. Over the course of a week, I meticulously installed a compact, high-fidelity sound system inside it. A Bluetooth speaker, a powerful mini amplifier, and a rechargeable battery pack that could run for hours. The speaker grill was disguised as a decorative air vent in the woodwork, completely invisible to the naked eye. The whole system could be activated remotely from a tiny keychain remote in my pocket. The final piece of the puzzle was the audio file. The night after Clara confessed her plan, after she had fallen asleep, believing she had successfully manipulated me, I had a conversation with her. A second one. I told her I was scared, that I needed to understand the plan better so I could play my part correctly. Her ego, buoyed by her victory, couldn't resist the urge to explain her own cleverness. With my phone recording silently on the nightstand between us, I played the part of the devoted, heartbroken fool. "But what will you say exactly?" I asked, my voice laced with fake despair. "I just need to know what to expect." And she, in her arrogance, laid it all out. "Don't worry," her recorded voice said, smooth and condescending. "I'll be gentle. I'll just say that while I respect you, Ethan, I've come to realize that my duty is to my family's legacy. That our paths are diverging. That I need to focus on the future that my father has planned for me. He'll love it. It makes me look strong and decisive." "And what about us?" my recorded voice asked, full of pathetic hope. "We just have to be patient," she'd cooed. "Once I have control of my trust, we can do whatever we want. Daddy will be angry for a while, but he'll get over it. He just needs to see that I'm an Ashworth first. It's not personal, Ethan. It's just what's required." I edited the recording until it was a clean, damning 2-minute clip. Her words, stripped of her crocodile tears, were nothing short of sociopathic. It was the sound of my life being reduced to a business transaction. I saved the file, titled it Continuity, and uploaded it to a secure cloud server. The night of the culling arrived. I stood at the back of the ballroom, watching Alistair take his place behind the podium I had built. My podium. He placed his hands on its polished surface, a king at his throne. He looked out at the silent crowd, at his children who were holding their breath, and he began to speak. "Tradition," he began, his voice amplified by the ballroom's sound system. "Tradition is the bedrock upon which a strong family is built. It is the compass that guides us through the turbulent seas of change. Tonight, we honor that tradition." He spoke for 10 minutes, a long, rambling ode to his own greatness and the sanctity of the Ashworth name. I saw Clara preening near the front, her brothers fidgeting nervously. This was it. The moment was coming. "And now," Alistair said, his voice dropping an octave, "we come to the future, to the difficult decisions that a patriarch must make." He looked directly at Clara. "Clara, my daughter, you have shown promising signs of late. A return to the values that matter. Please, come forward." Clara walked to the podium, her steps graceful, her expression a perfect blend of solemnity and resolve. She stood beside her father. He put an arm around her. "My daughter has an announcement," Alistair boomed. "One that I believe demonstrates her renewed commitment to this family's destiny." Clara leaned toward the microphone. The room was dead silent. This was my cue. My thumb found the small remote in my pocket. I took a deep breath, and I pressed the button. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, from the podium itself, a new voice emerged. It was Clara's voice, but it wasn't the one she was using now. It was the cold, calculating voice from our bedroom. "I'll just say that while I respect you, Ethan, I've come to realize that my duty is to my family's legacy." Clara froze. Alistair looked at the podium in confusion, tapping the microphone as if it were malfunctioning. The audio technician at the side of the stage was frantically checking his board, shaking his head. The sound wasn't coming from his system. It was coming from within the podium. "It's not personal, Ethan. It's just what's required." The recording ended. It was followed by a profound, echoing silence. 300 pairs of eyes were now staring at Clara and Alistair, not with respect, but with a mixture of shock, confusion, and dawning disgust. The carefully constructed facade of Ashworth dignity had been shattered by a whisper from a box. Clara looked like she had been turned to stone. Alistair's face was a mask of purple fury. He stared out at the crowd, then his eyes found me at the back of the room. He knew. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I just turned, walked out of the ballroom and didn't look back. I could hear the murmurings and panicked whispers erupting behind me, the sound of an empire beginning to crumble. I had done more than expose a lie. I had taken their most sacred symbol of power and turned it into a monument to their own corruption. The aftermath was, from what I've heard, catastrophic. The story was all over Charleston in a matter of hours. The Ashworths became social pariahs overnight. Their powerful friends, who prized discretion above all else, wanted nothing to do with a family that aired its psychopathic laundry in public. Alistair's business partners got spooked. Their carefully curated world of illusion was gone. I never heard from Clara again. I didn't need to. I had formed the ultimate boundary. I moved out of our apartment that night. The business, Ashworth and Cole, was dissolved. I kept my tools and the satisfaction of my work. She could keep the name. It was tarnished beyond repair anyway. Today my workshop is my sanctuary. It's quiet here. The only voices are the ones on the radio. The work is honest. I take broken things, beautiful old things that have been discarded, and I give them a second chance. I sand away the old, dark varnish, and I find the true, beautiful grain underneath. It's good, honorable work, and it's all mine.